Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everyone, I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Dr. Ludmila Praslova. Ludmila is the author of The Canary Code, a guide to neurodiversity, dignity, and intersectional belonging at work. She's also a member of the Thinkers 50 Radar class of 2024, a global group of management thinkers most likely to make an impact on the world. I'm so honored to have her here. She's also a professor of graduate industrial organizational psychology at Vanguard University of Southern California. Please join me in welcoming Ludmila Praslova. Welcome, Ludmila.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm happy to be here. I just love the idea of your podcast.
Oh,
careers are so crucial to our life and well-being for most of us. It's just a topic that I know is very, very formative to many of our lives.
yes. Well, and you work with a lot of students who are also trying to move their careers forward. So you know very well how important those things are. You're always supporting and nurturing them as they move forward. So we're going to go back in time a little bit on Work from the Inside Out. We love to start at the beginning and learn a little bit about those early years, your formative years, and how they may or may not have informed where you are today. Tell us a little bit about your earlier years.
Well, it's a little bit different because I was not exactly, I think, what my parents expected or knew what or had any idea what to do with. Because they were very talented people, but they were also hit by any historical crisis that ever happened. So they were always, in farming jobs, blue-collar jobs, even though they were actually super intelligent people, my mom's side especially. But they did not know what to do with a child who spoke in poetry for like 6 months out of the blue when I was 3.
Wow. You spoke in poetry?
I decided I wanted to speak in poetry, and I just did it for several months. So, it was a little bit different. And I would write plays and make people, put them in play roles in my plays. So it was a little bit different. But what I was kind of steered toward would be, gardening and sewing and doing things with my hands. But I'm dyspraxic, so I'm completely horrible at those things. So my family sort of thought that I was useless because I could only do anything that was useful with words, and anything I did with my hands was just not particularly usable. So it was interesting.
Well, it's funny. I mean, you're laughing about it now, looking back on it. How did it feel at the time?
It was different because they always tried to push me into literally doing things with my hands, which is my worst talent, including playing music, because I'm horrible at that too. I got slapped on my hands because my hands won't do what they were supposed to do. But what I always wanted to do is just any kind of learning and any kind of creative work. So I would just read college textbooks for fun. I wouldn't do my homework because homework was boring. But I would read college textbooks and, write poetry. And again, my teachers had no idea what to do with me either because it was a very blue collar environment. And And we all kids got stirred into blue collar jobs.
Oh, really?
So
that was what was the and tell us a little bit of when you say we're all blue collar jobs, was there a particular industry that was in your area?
yeah, well, there was a textile factory. So basically, all girls got stirred into textile factory, and then the rest of it would be, farms and any kind of other industry, like factories. So it was very interesting, but we also it was a strange mix of blue collar and high culture.
Oh, interesting.
Because we also went to theaters and museums every week.
Wow.
So that's the interesting aspect of just living in a highly cultured city in the
Yeah.
blue collar area of it.
Wow. That sounds really interesting.
It was normal to me, but I think
Right.
most people just have hard time conceiving how Eastern Europe could combine poverty and high culture in the same place and in the same person.
Yeah.
But it doesn't usually happen in the States, or maybe a little bit more in Western Europe, but it's much more characteristic to what you would find in Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you grew up in Eastern Europe. Do you mind telling us what country you grew up in?
Russia.
Aha. Okay. My homeland too.
Oh, you know that.
My grandparents were there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so my parents were first generation. But yes, that's definitely my heritage. So I mean, obviously you're here in the United States now. Take us forward then from your blue collar, highly cultured life as a child, and where did you go from there?
Well, there were a few steps. I went to study kind of organizational psychology, human resources type thing. It
Oh, yeah?
wasn't quite called that at the time,
Oh,
because I wanted to do something creative and something interesting, but I also had a sensibility of needing to have a practical job. So that was a compromise, something that I enjoyed studying, but also something that is typically associated with a stable job.
yeah.
But then while I was in college, I kind of fell into doing global diversity and working for global companies and global not for profits
Oh,
that
interesting.
had a lot of people from all the different cultures. And I just absolutely loved it.
Huh.
So I ended up doing that for several years, just doing global diversity within a very large not for profit that was, again, a very interesting combination of cultures.
Ah.
And it was fascinating. I loved the job. I think I did a pretty good job with it because people got along. We had a very inclusive environment when it came to specifically national level cultures,
Oh, interesting.
but not when it came to other aspects of diversity, specifically gender.
Oh.
So, and I was a director of intercultural relations, and I was like, 25-ish something. And then they basically told me that was as far as I was ever going to go,
Oh, interesting.
because professional development was for brothers.
Was for brothers?
Yes.
Was that how they were referred to in that organization?
Yes. It was just
I'm
typically referred
guessing
to
that
as a man.
you're intentionally not mentioning the name of the organization,
Yes.
but can you give us at least a little bit of information about the nature of the work that the
It was a not
organization?
for profit.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But yes, so they were very inclusive in some ways, but not necessarily gender.
Yeah. So and so you had this role, director of intercultural relations at a relatively young age.
Yes. And I saw that I reached my ceiling at that point. So I got mad and went to doctoral program.
So is that when you came over to the States, or did you do it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I see.
And I just felt like this was the most logical sense. So I just got a big book for how to study for GRE.
Yeah.
And I got really high scores. I got a full ride. So,
oh, wow.
Because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I was not paid anything that would allow me to actually do that. But so, and I got a, teaching assistantship, like anyone else. You teach some classes and you get tuition remission.
Sure.
So that's how I ended up in a doctoral program in industrial organizational psychology. But I specifically wanted to do it because I wanted to figure out how to make organizations intersectionally inclusive, not just of one aspect of diversity, like global diversity, but of any aspect of humanity. So I was just, okay, I'm going to try to unlock this problem, because there are many organizations, or the welcoming of gender but not of race, or the welcoming of race but not disability. And it's like, how do we make organizations inclusive of every aspect of human being?
Right. And so this really, and you knew that this cut across so many organizations, not just your own individual experience with this one organization.
Absolutely. I watched my parents work their entire lives. So, especially my mother, I hung out a lot in various organizations. So I knew that all organizations have their little issues.
Yeah. So did you go right from the nonprofit to the PhD program?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I had several jobs. Like between college and the PhD program, I think it was about 6 or 7 years. So I mostly was doing this nonprofit work, but I also had a research job for a while, but it was really boring just because for that particular organization, nothing was happening.
Yeah.
And I also taught college at that time period. So I did a few things.
Wow.
But they were kind of wrapped in several things. I also had gigs. I don't know why people think they invented gigs. I had gigs for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
I was translating books and, doing all kinds of, interpreting. So I've done various things. I don't think I ever had just one job at one time.
Well, I've known you for a few years now, and I know that you're always doing more than one thing for sure. It all ties in though with the things that you are really passionate about.
Yes.
So it's not like you're out there doing something completely different. It seems like you're just doing a lot of things in different ways that all tie in, focused on the work that you are so dedicated to.
You're very much tying in. I've done something that had to do with inclusion in the workplace since I was 19.
That's amazing. That is just
a very long time too.
Well, you know what though? I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's amazing that you had that vision at that time, that it was necessary. And
it had multiple iterations, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that people should be treated with dignity and allowed to fully exercise their talents, that just never went away.
Right. But I think what I really appreciate about sort of the depth at which you've gone with this is the ways in which you've really worked not just to make a statement about it, but to really educate people about it, and to not to pay it lip service. I think there's a lot of people out there who care about this, but only go so far. And I think that you're really going a lot farther with it, with your book, with all the work that you do. You do a lot of writing, a lot of articles getting published. And I know because I've been reading them and sharing them with other people to try to help spread the word and to really have people understand that we have a lot of talent out there that's not being tapped into. And it's really important that people be aware that just because one person or another person doesn't seem to fit a certain mold, it means nothing. It means that they need to be engaged and brought into our workplaces and into our communities.
Absolutely. And I just so appreciate all the support and sharing. I think there are different ways people can help.
Yeah.
And I have a degree in industrial organizational psychology and a ton of experience. So
Right.
I'm just using it all the way. And whatever is this other person's expertise, they can use whatever it is where they are in their own circle of influence.
Right, right. So I'm curious where you went for your PhD. Where did you end up in the U.S. initially?
I ended up at the University of Akron, Ohio. And not many people think about it as a particularly famous place, other than some people know it's a tire capital, Firestone and all. But it actually has one of the top 10 industrial organizational psychology programs, and then a really well-known kind of polymer chemistry, which then does go back to the tire capital.
Well, see, there you are again, right? The intellectual and the what might be seen as more of the blue collar combined in one place.
Yes, I actually never thought about it this way, but yes, it's a very interesting place with the tradition that is very much of a blue collar rust belt, but also a lot of education and culture.
Yeah. So and so was this was a program where you got a master's and went right into a PhD? Was it?
Yes.
Yes.
It was a May PhD program where you get masters along the way.
So how long were you there?
4 years, and then I kind of finished my dissertation in the 5th year, but I was also working at the same time.
Oh, you were? So take us.
The 5th year, I actually had a job, so I wrote the dissertation while being in
right. So were you still in
for 4 years, but
right.
I finished the dissertation the 5th year.
I see. So were you somewhere else at that point?
I was in Oregon.
Oh, you went to Oregon. Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
It was a beautiful place to live, and I enjoyed it for 4 years that I lived there.
You were there for 4 years, so I see there's some symmetry here.
And then I've been 18 years in California, so wow, that's a really long time.
All right. So when you moved to Oregon, though, what kind of a role were you in there?
The academic teaching.
Oh, it was academic. Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty much after the doctoral program, I've mostly been in academic jobs and then doing all the research and consulting in addition to that.
Was that your goal when you went into the doctoral program, that you would go the academic route?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I wasn't entirely set on something, but I did say I taught before I went to graduate school, so I didn't know that I wanted to teach.
Right.
And then I kind of thought that I would want to have my options, but that definitely was something I wanted to do. So, but I always liked learning, so academic job did come naturally.
Sure. And And so now you've been in California for 10 years and in the also in industrial and organizational psychology.
Yes.
And you're working with graduate students there, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
the master students.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that work and how you came about to write a book.
Okay. Well, graduate programs are just extremely important because you train people to be leaders in the workplace. And so one of the things I really wanted is to train graduate students, adult students for careers in this area, but also kind of to help them see the importance of diversity in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely part that is very important and a big passion. And then, we all need to grow and start doing different things. And I always wanted to write, and there were always, just life problems and survival demands. And then I found another aspect of diversity that I was really, really passionate about, and specifically neurodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
I did look at, PTSD earlier in some of my early research, and I always had interest in psychological level differences in addition to, cultural and big level demographic categories.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking about the psychological level differences.
Sure.
And that to me was the answer to the big problem, because when you just look at big categories like national level cultures or, gender,
Mm-hmm.
someone is going to fall through the cracks of those big categories. Someone is going to be so intersectionally different that there will never be an inclusion program for them.
Right.
So when I started thinking about it on the individual psychological level differences, how do we accommodate in the workplace different learning styles, different information processing preferences for different schedule of work, different emotional intensity.
Yeah.
If we figure out how to do that, then all the differences that are attributed to culture and gender would largely be accounted for if we do a more granular. So it's like, if you think about big differences in culture, it's like a safety net with really, really big squares, and lots of people are falling through because it's very loose. But if you think about the individual level differences, so introverts versus extroverts, people who need longer chunks of time to work versus people who can only work in 25-minute bursts, and then they need a walk.
Yeah.
If you create this workplace inclusion on that level, you're going to end up with a much tighter net for people. And people are going to be much less likely to fall through whatever it is that organization thinks as inclusion.
Right. I can imagine that. I love the imagery of the net, the way you're using it and explaining it. It's really helpful. And
I actually just came up with it.
Really?
Yes.
It's great. Well, it really made a difference. You know how that kind of visual thinking really helps when you're trying to imagine something. And I do a lot of work myself with people in organizations, and I think about how often misunderstandings occur. Simple things that probably look very simple and yet become bigger than they need to be. The nets get bigger. And so I'm just curious, how if someone listening is really wanting to, let's say, create a more inclusive work environment or start to have those kinds of conversations within their organization, what would be some ways that they would begin to start thinking about that? Or would getting your book be?
Well, getting my book would definitely be a very good start with it. And I do go through the entire talent cycle from envisioning jobs to recruiting to hiring to onboarding, talent development, performance management. So you could look at all the aspects of the cycle. And I'd also talk about the nature of change in organizations and how people can become change catalysts. And they don't necessarily have to be CEOs. CEOs do have power and leverage that could allow them to execute maybe faster change if they were so inclined. But other people can also do something within their areas of influence to make workplaces more inclusive. And sometimes it actually starts just by looking at your organization and identifying a pain point. So let's say everyone is really stressed out by promotion system because it's so convoluted and so non-transparent. And whenever someone gets promoted, there's rumors because everybody thinks there was some kind of injustice involved. Okay, lots of people hate promotion system. Try to address that and make that more inclusive, because you're likely to have a lot of people on board who will want that change. Or you might have a situation where workplace is just not physically comfortable. Let's say you just have those horrible offices where nobody can focus,
Right.
where there's this constant distraction. And perhaps you could find enough of a coalition and a group of people who would want to work with you and will help you to address that particular problem. So identify the problem and identify a problem that bugs a lot of people. So you get more than one person, oh, this person complains about random things.
Right.
Fix that in a way that it would be helpful and inclusive of many people. So let's say if we're talking about neurodivergent people, then yes, autistic people, for example, have more issues with all office politics and non-transparent systems. But if your promotion system is that bad, then many other people have an issue with it.
Right.
And neurodivergent people might be more distracted by horrible offices, but most people are annoyed by horrible offices. So you do something, as the idea of the canary code. Canaries are more sensitive to toxins than humans, than miners.
I was wondering what I was just going to ask you about the canary code. So
yes, so you fix the problem. You make air that's good enough for canaries, for more sensitive, but that means the air is better for everyone, even for people who can tolerate toxicity a little bit longer, but eventually it will get them. So let's fix it for everyone.
I love that. That's great. It really clears up what you just talked about. It clears up it makes it more tangible and palpable to think about where would you begin or how would you start to build in a more, inclusive practice or inclusive, to move towards a more inclusive work environment. And because I can see where some people start talking about these things and it feels so big. They don't know how to just zero in on, like you said, a pain point that seems to be somewhat pervasive and could be a great place to start. And that could be just the place you put a pin in that, and that leads you to some other places where movement starts to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if we just say we're going to change our entire organization, that's a big pronouncement that's very hard to do, and most people are going to roll their eyes.
Right. If not more than
changes, that. And they know they don't work.
Right.
But if you say, you could obviously say that we want to be more inclusive, but many people don't believe that anymore because they're seeing the reality of what's happening. But if you get a significant early win that helps many people, and people see the point, and they see the point of forming this improvement coalition because they know it's not just like your self-interest or something that two people will benefit from, but changes that go deep enough to benefit everyone in the entire organization. You're much more likely to get people behind you. So finding the pain point within the big cycle, that's where I have seen the most success.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Yeah, I was going to ask you about where you've seen the most success, and not to try to pigeonhole this too much. Nothing against the canaries. I just said pigeon, but
it's okay. I like pigeons too.
But I'm curious if sort of the pathway to some success with this is more palpable or tangible in a smaller organization versus a very large organization, or where these kinds of things would be initiated by, let's say, a human resources or people and culture department. I would imagine you still have to have a huge amount of support to really make substantial changes. You need a huge amount of support from the executive level team to really employ these kinds of things.
If you are a large organization, something like Microsoft or Amazon, they usually go the route of specific hiring programs, which pigeonhole people into particular jobs. So they would have, let's say, neurodiversity hiring program, but that basically means they want autistic programmers, and that's all they want. So that's very limiting to the kinds of interests and the type of people that would ever be hired by that program. So it helps those people, but it leaves the majority of people behind. And that, unfortunately, is as far as it would go in many large organizations. There are some organizations that are trying to open up jobs in, everything and any line of work, but that's usually a bit more slow going for large organizations that have a lot of retrofitting to do.
Right.
And very often those things also turn into PR things. And when you read organizational PR, and then the employees are telling me completely different thing. And so there are some organizations, and I do talk about one of those organizations, where employees are talking up the organization, talking from the employee perspective that they're doing the right thing.
Wow.
But it doesn't necessarily always go with most, high pronouncement types of organizations, unfortunately. But it is hard. It is very hard to retrofit a large organizations. And some have done amazing work. So JP Morgan, for example, one of the first, and they had a wonderful program where they also did quite a bit of research, and it does document very high success level of those autistic employees that they started hiring, and then they tried to actually expand the type of jobs in which those people could work. So that's one of them, also good examples. But there are other ways to do it. So there are companies that are designed from the ground up to be inclusive. So I talk about some of those organizations. So Alternauts would be an example of an organization that was started from the beginning, designed to be neuro-inclusive, and is majority neurodivergent.
I see. Okay.
So you could go different routes, and there are other people who just started organizations, specifically even small organizations, but they design them from the beginning to hire neurodivergent people. And then those organizations can grow.
Yeah.
And they end up with attracting all kinds of diversity.
Sure.
Because when you create this psychological level inclusion, it tends to attract all kinds of diversity because really all of that is manifested on our psychological level and how we feel about things and how we think about things.
Right.
So I really like those case studies of organizations that started very early in their development and were able to build those inclusive practices into everything they do, into their entire culture, into their entire system. It doesn't mean retrofitting doesn't work.
Right.
You can have an older organization and make it more inclusive, but it does tend to be associated with pockets. Like some pockets might be more than others.
Yeah. That's helpful to hear, though. It'd be great if we could include some links to some of these organizations in the show notes, just so if people want to refer to a few of those. That would be great.
You can find my HBR article on transparency from 15th August 23.
Okay.
And I describe several organizations and examples in that article. So that would be an easy way to get all of it and multiple examples in one place.
Wonderful. I will definitely
it's an article on flexibility.
That's great. I will put a link to your article and then some of the other information. I'll put that in the show notes. Make sure people see that. I think we have a lot of people listening who are going to be very interested in this. So
there's a lot of very interesting work happening in the world.
Yeah. Well, and I think your work is very interesting. So tell us where things are at today. I know that, we are recording this at the very end of March 2024, and your book is due out May 7th, 2024, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. I also love the design of the cover. I just had to say that. I think
Thank you. I had fun playing with it.
Yeah. And I'm curious to know about, your work today. You're teaching and you've been writing the book for at least a couple of years, or it's a compilation.
Oh my goodness. Well, I started thinking about it at the very end of 2019.
Okay.
So I know what happened. So I kind of got this big picture idea around that time. And so I actually started collecting research and ideas and bits and pieces on top of everything else I'm doing, obviously. And then most of the writing happened between January and May, June, July 23. So everything else beyond that is, editing and production.
Sure. Well, it's interesting to know that process. And then just this year, you were named to the Thinkers 50 radar class.
Oh, that was so incredible. And it was just, oh my gosh. People from my background don't often become top management thinkers in the world. Acknowledged as top management thinkers in the world. So, but it's such a wonderful organization. I just love people. They are so open to really new ways of doing things in the workplace.
Yeah. So, what is that? How are there other things that become available to you or your work as a result of that big acknowledgement?
Well, we did a podcast or LinkedIn Live that was very fun, and there is some very interesting networking and talking to some wonderful people. So we'll see what else is going to happen. But so far, there's been a couple of collaboration conversations that I think are going to be great fun. Again, my time is kind of limited because I'm trying to do all of this on top of the actual work.
Your day job, as they say.
Yes, which is also very important.
Yes,
but, and obviously there are links, but there's still only so much you can do realistically with your time. But I really hope to get more people to think about neurodiversity in all of its intersectionalities, because that's a part that is also very often lost in the conversations. And whenever you put an emphasis on any kind of one characteristic, take gender, we know that white women, rich women are much more likely to benefit from gender interventions.
Right.
And the same thing from any kind of intervention. If you just talk about neurodiversity, and you say, okay, I'm going to hire neurodivergent people, they're much more likely to be rich and white if you only talk about one characteristic. So, and that's obviously within the U.S. context.
Right.
With the brackets on it, because in every culture, the particular hierarchy could be a little bit different. But in general, the least privileged are multiply marginalized people. So that's something that I'm just really trying to convey. This is why you cannot just focus on one variable. You need to have any kind of inclusion intervention, considering social economic status, considering disability, considering all the other variables that very often are omitted and that really are necessary for people to consider if we are ever going to have fairness in the workplace.
Yeah. Well, I think that intersectional piece is clearly you're emphasizing that, and people really need to hear that. I talked to somebody the other day who said they went to some kind of a meeting or forum on diversity. That was the name that was used. And it was all about generations in the workplace. And
that's an important aspect.
Right. But they said that what they found interesting about it was that it wasn't just one of these things where they talked about identifying the characteristics of each generation in the workplace. It was with the lens of diversity. And they found that very refreshing and just another perspective, but they understood the intersectionality of other factors as well. But that they were pleasantly surprised by how it was handled and how it was presented.
That sounds excellent.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different sections in the intersectionality, for sure.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, even
it's a lot of things that people don't even think about.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Particular hidden, non-apparent health conditions that are highly misunderstood and stigmatized that can make such a huge difference.
Yeah.
So in addition to all the more often talked about differences.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing all of this. And I'm very excited about your book. If people want to reach out to you and learn more about your work, what's the best place for them to go?
I am very easy to find on LinkedIn. If you just Google me, Ludmila Praslova, it's going to come up. And I'm on other social media, but LinkedIn is my main one. But I use the same name on Instagram and on Twitter. And that really is the best place to find me. It's kind of a hub. Lots of my articles are linked under my profile. So it's very easy to find much of my body of work there.
Great. So, and we will have all of that in the show notes, plus the website for your book and your other social media links. So, one final question, Ludmila, is as you know, in Work from the Inside Out, we like to ask people about, making decisions and transitions in general. And you've certainly had to make many decisions throughout your career about where you were going and how you were going about things. I like a lot of the change. I like a lot of the decisions you made.
Yeah.
But if you were to give somebody who was trying to decide what's next for them a key piece of advice, what would be a piece of advice you might give somebody who's about to enter into a process of some kind of change in their career?
It's obviously nerve-wracking, and it's important to be doing it for the right reason, because sometimes we're just reactive and we're running away from something rather than running towards something. And sometimes it works and you can end up in a good place, but sometimes people are running away from something and they end up somewhere where they didn't want to be. So, if at all possible, try to have a realistic evaluation of what you're good at, what you like, and how that can also lead to a productive career. So rather than I hate this, so I'm going to do anything that's not it.
Right.
Or my parents push me into blah and I'm going to do anything but that.
Right.
Really going towards something that you like. People who are younger might need to do a little bit more searching and even take some assessments to see what they're good at, maybe job shadowing if you don't have very much experience. And that's hard to know what you want and what you're actually good at realistically. So it might require a little bit of experimentation. But sometimes for older people, you can even just feel like, I'm just so sick and tired of whatever and, rage quitting.
Yes.
Sometimes that happens. And sometimes, if you need to save your mental health by walking away from a completely awful situation, you can do that.
Yeah.
But if not just rage quitting, but I'm going to something that I actually want, it's usually a better way to do it. And another thing to do it is sometimes you can job craft within your organization. And sometimes instead of rage quitting, you could, if it's your boss, maybe you can do an internal transfer somewhere and find a much better situation. So sometimes people do things that are more radical than necessary.
Yes.
And sometimes we need to be radical. So just kind of take a moment to try to figure out what is it that you actually want? Any change or a very particular change? And just try to be more proactive by mapping the steps how you can get there.
Great advice. I also think don't assume the grass is greener on the other side of the street, right?
That's why I'm a big proponent of job crafting and internal transfers. Because sometimes you can change something about your workplace situation. Let's say you have a horrible manager. Transfer internally, and that might solve the problem. Or there's this 50% of your work that you really dislike, but you like 80%. So see if you can trade with someone who loves that 20% for a different piece. And you can job craft in place toward much better things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think sometimes when people find themselves unhappy, they go from 0 to 100 rather than realizing that they can really do something more incremental and still find a more satisfying place.
Right.
So,
but sometimes people are in a completely different career. And they never wanted to be, office workers, and they always wanted to be in a culinary school. But I think those cases are relatively rare, and it's much more likely that a relatively small tweak can make a big difference.
And on that wonderful note, I want to say thank you so much for being here today. This has been really enlightening and eye-opening in so many ways. I'm so excited to share your story and your work with my audience. That there's a lot here, and I'm encouraging people to get their hands on the Canary Code, a guide to neurodiversity, dignity, and intersectional belonging at work, because I think it's going to be revolutionary in our workplaces and I think in our lives too. So I really want to encourage people to take a look at that. Thank you again for being here.
I really appreciate your kind words. And oh my gosh, I'm choking. And I was thrilled to be on your podcast. I just love all the work you do with Work from Inside Out and helping people to be CEOs of their careers. It's just so important. I love it. And I'm glad we finally had this time together.
Yes, me too. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of my interview with Ludmila Praslova. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? If you're interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygulerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 249. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes. If you're feeling it, please help me to inspire more people to grow their careers by clicking on the Apple Podcasts button right there. Leave an honest rating and brief review. By doing so, you help build the visibility of the podcast, which I'm hoping will help inspire more people to find happy careers. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. You can also help sustain the podcast by buying me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TammyGL. Since this podcast is self-funded, your support is acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.